I need to tell someone about what happened to me and my friends in the summer of 2018. I've kept quiet about it for years because, honestly, who would believe me? But it's eating me alive, and I can't keep pretending it didn't happen. My therapist says talking about trauma helps, so here I am, talking. My name is Sarah Mitchell. In 2018, I was 23 years old, fresh out of college, working my first real job as a graphic designer in Silver Spring, Maryland. I'd moved to the area from Ohio about 8 months earlier and was still getting to know the place and trying to make friends as an adult, which is way harder than anyone tells you. I met Derek and Amanda through a hiking group on Meetup. Derek was this laid-back guy in his late 20s who worked in IT and knew every trail in a 50-mile radius. Amanda was a nurse, funny as hell, with this infectious energy that made every hangout feel like an adventure. We clicked immediately. By June, we were hanging out every weekend, hiking, trying new restaurants, exploring the weird little towns around the DMV. That's how we ended up hearing about the Goatman. It was a Friday night, June 22nd, and we were at this dive bar in Beltsville. The three of us had just finished a hike at Greenbelt Park and were decompressing over burgers and beer. At some point, our conversation turned to local legends and creepy stories. Amanda, who grew up in the area, got this mischievous look on her face. "Have you guys heard about the Goatman?" she asked. Derek laughed. "Oh God, here we go. What's a Goatman?" I asked. Amanda leaned in, clearly enjoying this. So, back in the 70s, there was supposedly this scientist at the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center. He was doing experiments on goats, trying to engineer some kind of super livestock or whatever. But something went wrong, really wrong. The guy got exposed to some chemical or virus or something, and it transformed him, made him part goat. Now he lives in the woods around Prince George's County, attacking people who get too close to his territory. "That's ridiculous," I said, laughing. "Oh, it gets better," Derek chimed in. "There are dozens of reported sightings. People claim they've seen this thing, 7 feet tall, walks on 2 legs, but has hooves and horns and fur. It carries an axe and goes after people near bridges and overpasses." "An axe?" I raised an eyebrow. "A mutant goat scientist carries an axe?" "Look, I don't make the rules," Amanda said, grinning. "But people around here take it seriously. There's this one bridge, the Crybaby Bridge on Fletchertown Road, where most of the sightings happen. My cousin swears he saw something there in high school. Said it chased his car." "Your cousin also thinks Bigfoot lives in his garage," Derek pointed out. We all laughed, but Amanda wasn't done. "I'm just saying, there are a lot of stories, too many to all be made up. And that whole area around Fletchertown Road is creepy as hell, even in daylight." I don't know if it was the beer or the fact that I was still in that phase where you do stupid things to bond with new friends, but I heard myself say, "We should go check it out." Derek nearly spit out his drink. "What? Come on, it's not even midnight. Let's go see this bridge. If it's all bullshit, which it obviously is, we'll get a good story out of it. If it's actually creepy, even better." Amanda's eyes lit up. "Oh my God, yes, road trip to find the Goatman." Derek was the voice of reason. "This is a terrible idea. We've been drinking. It's dark. And even if the Goatman isn't real, those back roads are sketchy as hell." "You don't have to come," Amanda said, already pulling out her phone to look up directions. "Sarah and I will go. You can stay here and be boring." That got him. "Fine, but I'm driving, and we're not staying long. We take a look at the bridge, take some photos for Instagram, and we leave. Deal?" "Deal," Amanda and I said in unison. I wish we'd stayed at that bar. Fletchertown Road is one of those rural routes that feels like it shouldn't exist this close to a major city. We were only about 30 minutes from DC, but the landscape had transformed completely. Thick woods on both sides, no streetlights, houses few and far between. Derek's GPS kept trying to reroute us, like even it didn't want us out there. "This is definitely where people get murdered in horror movies," I muttered from the back seat. "Thank you for that," Derek said, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter. Amanda was navigating using a paranormal investigation website she'd found. "Okay, so according to this, the bridge should be coming up in about half a mile. It's a small overpass, supposedly built in the 50s. There's a legend that a school bus crashed there and kids died, which is why it's called Crybaby Bridge. You're supposed to hear kids crying if you stop your car, but that's separate from the Goatman thing." "Wait, there are two legends about this bridge?" I asked. "Marilyn doesn't do anything halfway," she replied. The bridge appeared in our headlights, a narrow concrete overpass spanning a dark creek below. It was smaller than I'd expected, barely wide enough for two cars to pass. The woods pressed in close on both sides, and there was something about the place that immediately felt wrong. Not scary movie wrong. Just like the air pressure was different or something. Derek stopped the car in the middle of the bridge. "All right, we're here. Everyone happy?" Amanda was already unbuckling her seatbelt. "Let's get out and look around." "Absolutely not," Derek said. "We agreed we'd look at the bridge. We're looking at it, through the windows, from inside the locked car." "Don't be a baby," Amanda said, opening her door. I don't know why I followed her out. Peer pressure, I guess? Or maybe just that dumb curiosity that makes people do exactly what they shouldn't. Derek cursed under his breath, but turned off the car and joined us. It was quiet. Like unnaturally quiet. No cicadas, no frogs, no birds. Just silence and the sound of our footsteps on the concrete. The creek below was barely visible, just a dark gap between the trees. Amanda walked to the railing and peered over. "It's really dark down there. You think there's actually water, or is it dried up?" "Let's not find out," Derek said, checking his phone. "No signal, by the way. Awesome." I walked to the other side of the bridge, where the road continued into more darkness. Something caught my eye in the tree line, a shape that didn't quite match the others. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. "Do you guys see that?" They came over to where I was standing. My light illuminated what looked like marks on the trees, deep gouges in the bark, like something had scraped them with claws or, I don't know, an axe maybe. The marks were fresh. I could see the pale wood underneath. "Probably just deer rubbing their antlers," Derek said, but his voice was uncertain. Then we heard it. A sound from the woods to our right. Not quite an animal sound, not quite human. Somewhere between a bleat and a scream, echoing through the trees. We all froze. "What the fuck was that?" Amanda whispered. "Goat, maybe?" I offered weakly. "There are farms around here, right?" The sound came again, closer this time. And then we heard footsteps. Heavy footsteps. Not the light patter of a deer or the scuttle of a raccoon. Something big, moving through the underbrush with purpose. "Car." "Now," Derek said. "We didn't run. Not at first. We walked quickly back to the car, trying to look calm, like we weren't completely freaking out. But the footsteps kept coming, getting closer, and then I made the mistake of looking back. There was something at the edge of the tree line. Something tall, taller than a person, standing upright but wrong. The proportions were off. The legs bent backward at the knee, like an animal's. And in the dim light from Derek's car, I could see its head. The shape was wrong. Too long. With something protruding from the top. Horns. "Get in the fucking car!" I screamed. We ran. All three of us, sprinting for the car. I heard that screaming, bleeding sound again, right behind us now, and the heavy thud of those footsteps breaking into a run. Derek got to the driver's side first, fumbling with his keys. Amanda and I reached the passenger side at the same time, both pulling at the door handle. The car was still locked. "Derek!" Amanda shrieked. He hit the unlock button just as something hit the rear of the car with tremendous force. The whole vehicle rocked forward. We threw ourselves inside, and Derek was already turning the key in the ignition. The thing appeared in the headlights. I'm going to do my best to describe what I saw, but I need you to understand. This wasn't a guy in a costume. This wasn't a bear or a deer or any other animal I've ever seen. This was something else entirely. It stood at least 7 feet tall, covered in matted, dark fur. The body was humanoid, broad shoulders, arms, a torso. But the legs were all wrong, digitreed like a goat's, ending in what looked like hooves. The head was the worst part. It was elongated like a goat's skull, with a protruding snout, but the eyes were positioned forward like a human's, like a predator's, and the horns, thick, curved horns that spiraled back from its skull. It was carrying something. A long handle with a rusted blade at the end. An axe. For just a moment, it stood there in the headlights, staring at us. Then it opened its mouth, a mouth full of flat herbivore teeth that shouldn't have been threatening, but somehow were, and screamed. Derek slammed his foot on the gas. The tires spun for a second, and then we lurched forward. The thing swung the axe, and I heard the blade scrape along the side of the car as we sped past it. Derek didn't slow down for the turn at the end of the bridge. We fishtailed onto the road, barely maintaining control. "Geo! Geo! Geo!" Amanda was screaming from the passenger seat. I twisted around to look out the back window. The thing was chasing us, running on those backward-bent legs, covering ground impossibly fast. It was keeping pace with the car, even as Derek pushed 40, then 50 miles per hour. "IT's gaining!" I yelled. Derek floored it. The car hit 60 on a road that should have had a speed limit of 30. The thing fell back and finally disappeared from view as we rounded a curve. None of us spoke for the next 10 minutes. Derek just drove, white-knuckled, until we were back on a main road with streetlights and other cars. Only then did he pull over at a gas station. We sat there in the parking lot, engine running, all of us breathing hard. "What the fuck was that?" Amanda finally said. "What the actual fuck was that?" "I don't know," Derek said. His hands were shaking. "I don't know. I was crying and didn't realize it until I felt the tears on my face. We need to call someone, the police, animal control, someone." "And tell them what?" Derek asked. "That we saw a 7-foot goat monster with an axe. They'll think we're high." "But we all saw it," I insisted. "All 3 of us. That makes it real, right? That makes it—" "Let's just go home," Amanda interrupted. Her voice was flat, emotionless. "Shock, probably. Let's just go home and figure this out tomorrow." Derek drove me back to my apartment. None of us said much. When I got out of the car, I noticed the damage to the passenger side. 3 deep gouges in the paint running from the rear door all the way to the front panel. "Axe marks." "We'll talk tomorrow," Derek said. But his eyes said something else. His eyes said, "Please, let's never talk about this again." I didn't sleep that night. I kept seeing that thing in my mind. The way it moved, the way it looked at us, the intelligence in those predator eyes. The next morning, I called Amanda. No answer. I called Derek. He picked up on the 5th ring. "Hey," he said. His voice was hoarse, like he'd been crying. "Did you sleep?" "No." "You?" "No." Silence on the line. "Derek, we need to talk about what happened. We need to—" "I don't think we should," he interrupted. I'd been thinking about it all night, whatever that was. I think we should just forget about it. Pretend it didn't happen. We can't just... Yes, we can. Sarah, listen to me. We went somewhere we shouldn't have gone, and we saw something we weren't supposed to see. The best thing, the only thing we can do is stay away from there and never go back. Tell no one. Do nothing. Just a long pause. Then, I don't think it will. I think it stays near the bridge. That's its territory, as long as we don't go back. He didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. Don't go back, and maybe it will forget about us. Amanda felt the same way when I finally reached her that afternoon. I don't want to talk about it, she said. I'm serious, Sarah. Not now, not ever. We made a mistake, and we're lucky to be alive. That's all. I tried to argue, tried to convince them we should at least file a report somewhere, document what we saw. But they shut me down. And, eventually, I stopped pushing. We never hung out again, the three of us. Oh, we'd see each other at group hikes sometimes, exchange awkward hellos. But that easy friendship we'd had, it was gone, shattered on that bridge. I tried to research the Goatman legend online. There were dozens of stories, going back decades. People claimed to see it all over Prince George's County at Lotsford Vista Park, the research center, various bridges and back roads. Some stories were clearly fake, told for attention, but others had that ring of truth to them. The details that matched what I'd seen, the terror in the writing. I found a forum post from 2012, written by someone who claimed they'd encountered the Goatman near Fletchertown Road. Their description matched mine almost perfectly. The post ended with, "I haven't been back to Maryland since. I'm never going back. Some things you can't unsee." 3 months after our encounter, I got a text from Derek at 2 a.m. "Did you see the news?" I hadn't. I pulled up the local news website and found the story he meant. A hiker had gone missing in the woods near Beltsville. They found his body 2 days later, near a creek bed. The official cause of death was listed as animal attack, but the article mentioned unusual trauma that didn't match any known predator in the area. The body was found less than a mile from Fletchertown Road. Derek and I didn't text about it. We didn't need to. We both knew. I moved out of Maryland in 2019, told everyone it was for a better job opportunity, which was technically true. But the real reason was that I couldn't handle living there anymore. Every time I'd drive at night, I'd find myself checking the rearview mirror obsessively. Every time I'd see a wooded area, I'd wonder if it was watching from the trees. I'm in Colorado now. It's about as far from Maryland as I could get while still staying in the continental U.S. I tell myself I'm safe here, that whatever I saw stays near its bridge, its territory. But sometimes, not often, but sometimes, I'll hear something outside at night, a sound that's not quite animal, not quite human, a bleating scream that echoes through the darkness. And I wonder if it remembers me. If it knows where I went, if it's decided that I'm worth following. I'm telling you this story because I need someone else to know. If something happens to me, if I disappear, or if they find me somewhere with unusual trauma, I need someone to understand why. I need someone to know what's out there. Don't go looking for the Goatman. Don't drive down Fletchertown Road at night. Don't stop on that bridge. Some legends are real, some monsters are waiting in the dark. And some things, once they've seen you, never quite let you go. I still have nightmares about those eyes. The intelligence behind them, the way it looked at us, not like prey, not like a meal, like a challenge, like competition, like it was deciding whether we were worth hunting. I don't think it decided yes, not yet anyway. But I also don't think it decided no. I think it's still making up its mind. And that's the worst part. The waiting, the wondering, the knowledge that somewhere in the woods of Prince George's County there's something that remembers my face. Derek doesn't return my calls anymore. Amanda deleted all her social media last year. I think they're trying to erase any trace of that night, any connection to what we saw. Maybe they're right. Maybe silence is safety. But I can't shake the feeling that it doesn't matter how quiet we are. It knows. It remembers. And one day it might decide to come looking. If you're reading this and you live in Maryland and you've ever heard stories about the Goatman, believe them. Stay away from those back roads. Don't test it. Don't challenge it. We did, and we survived. But I don't know for how much longer. I'm sending you this story because I don't know where else to put it. I've tried forgetting. I've tried rationalizing. I've tried convincing myself that what happened on that Navajo reservation in October 2019 was just stress or exhaustion or some kind of collective hallucination. But it's been over 5 years now, and I still can't drive past the Arizona border without my hands shaking on the wheel. My name is Marcus Chen. I'm 34 years old, and I'm a geological surveyor. That's important, because my job is literally to observe and document reality. I measure things, I take samples, I record data. I'm not the kind of person who sees things that aren't there. But I saw something that shouldn't have been there. It started as a simple contract job. My company had been hired to do preliminary surveys for a potential solar farm project near Monument Valley. I know, another corporation trying to build on native land. I had my reservations about it, but I needed the work. The plan was to spend 2 weeks camping in the area, taking soil samples, measuring elevation, and documenting the terrain. I drove out from Flagstaff on October 12th. It was one of those perfect fall days in the southwest crystal blue sky, temperature in the low 70s, the kind of light that makes the red rocks look like they're glowing from within. I remember thinking how lucky I was to get paid to be out there. The site was remote, really remote, about 40 miles from the nearest town, down a dirt road that my GPS kept insisting didn't exist. The project manager had arranged for me to camp on private land owned by a Navajo family, the Benellis. They'd been compensated for access, and I was supposed to check in with them when I arrived. The Benelli house was a modest single-story home with a newer-looking truck parked outside and a few outbuildings scattered around the property. When I pulled up around 3 p.m., an older man, maybe 65, 70, came out to meet me. Thomas Benelli. He didn't smile when he shook my hand. "You're the surveyor," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir." "Marcus Chen. I really appreciate you letting me camp on your land. I'll stay out of your way, I promise." He looked at me for a long moment, then glanced past me toward the survey area, maybe 5 miles north of his property. His expression changed, just slightly, but I noticed it. Something tightened around his eyes. "How long you staying?" 2 weeks, maybe less if I finish early." Another long pause. Then, "You know where you're going to camp?" I pulled out my map and showed him the spot I'd marked. A flat area near some rock formations, good visibility, close to the survey grid. He studied it, and that tightness around his eyes got worse. "That's not good," he said quietly. "Is it too close to something? I can move if... You need to know some things. Rules." He looked back toward his house, like he was checking if anyone was listening. "Don't go out after dark, not even to your truck. You stay in your tent from sundown to sunrise, you understand?" I must have looked confused because he continued, more insistent now. "If you hear something outside at night, anything, you don't look, you don't respond. You definitely don't go investigate. I don't care what it sounds like." "Benelli, I appreciate the concern, but I've camped alone plenty of. You haven't camped here." His voice was sharp. "There are things out there. Old things. They don't like being disturbed, and they don't like strangers. You follow the rules. You'll probably be fine." "Probably." He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, wrapped in soft leather. "My daughter made this. Keep it with you." I unwrapped it. Inside was a small pouch on a leather cord, some kind of charm or talisman. It smelled like sage and cedar. "Thank you, but I really don't think—" "Keep it with you," he repeated, his eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made me stop talking, especially at night. "And if you see anything that doesn't feel right, you pack up and you leave. You don't wait. You don't try to document it. You just go." I took the charm. What else was I going to do? I thanked him, promised I'd be careful, and drove north to my campsite. Looking back, I should have paid more attention to how quiet he'd become when I left, how he stood in his driveway watching my truck disappear like he was watching a dead man drive away. The first 3 days were completely normal. I'd wake up at dawn, make coffee on my camp stove, spend the day hiking the survey grid with my equipment, then return to camp before sunset. The work was straightforward, even meditative. The landscape was stunning, all red stone and endless sky. I took dozens of photos that would never do it justice. I followed Mr. Benally's rules, mostly because they were easy to follow. I was exhausted by sunset anyway. Stayed in my tent, read by headlamp, fell asleep to the sound of absolute silence. The kind of silence you only get in truly remote places where there's no hum of electricity or distant traffic, just wind and sometimes the yip of coyotes far off in the distance. On the 4th night, October 15th, that silence broke. I was in my tent reading a paperback, some thriller I'd picked up at a gas station, when I heard footsteps outside. Not animal footsteps, human footsteps. The distinct crunch of boots on the sandy soil around my camp. I checked my watch, 11:47 p.m. My first thought was that maybe Mr. Benally or someone from his family had come to check on me. But nobody had mentioned doing that, and it was nearly midnight. My second thought was that maybe it was another surveyor or a hiker, though I hadn't seen any evidence of other people in the area. The footsteps circled my tent slowly, deliberately. I could track them by sound, starting at my left, moving behind me, around to my right, then stopping directly in front of my tent door. "Hello," I called out. My voice sounded thin and small. No response, just breathing. Heavy breathing, like someone who'd been running or was very out of breath. "Can I help you?" Nothing. But the breathing continued, and then I heard it sniff. Long, deep sniffs, like it was trying to smell me through the tent fabric. Every instinct I had was screaming to unzip the tent and see who or what was out there. I'm a rational person. I don't like uncertainty. But I remembered Mr. Benally's words. If you hear something outside at night, anything, you don't look. So I sat there in my sleeping bag, flashlight in hand, listening to something sniff at my tent for what felt like hours but was probably only 10 minutes. Then the footsteps resumed, circling again, faster this time. Circle after circle, the crunch of feet on sand, around and around my tent. And then it stopped. Complete silence again. I waited, barely breathing, for maybe 20 minutes. Nothing. Eventually, exhaustion won out over adrenaline, and I fell into an uneasy sleep. When I emerged at dawn, I immediately checked the ground around my tent. The sandy soil should have shown footprints clearly. Mine were everywhere from the previous evening, but there was nothing. No boot prints, no shoe prints, no prints at all except mine. I told myself I'd been dreaming. that the isolation was getting to me. I made coffee and went to work. That night, night 5, it came back. This time I was ready. I positioned my headlamp within easy reach and had my phone camera ready, even though I knew I wasn't going to look. I just wanted to record the audio, to prove to myself later that it was real. The footsteps started around 10 p.m., earlier than before. Same pattern, slow circles around my tent. But this time, there was something else. Breathing, yes, but also a sound I can only describe as clicking. Like someone clicking their tongue against the roof of their mouth, but wetter. Faster. I hit record on my phone. The clicking got louder, more rapid, and then, I swear to God, I heard my own voice outside the tent. "Hello?" it said. My voice. My exact intonation from the night before. "Can I help you?" My blood went cold. "Hello?" it repeated. "Can I help you? Can I help you? Hello?" Over and over my voice, perfectly mimicked, coming from whatever was circling my tent. And then it started laughing. This horrible, wet laugh that didn't sound quite human, even though it was using my voice. I must have made some sound, a whimper, a gasp, because suddenly everything went silent. The footsteps stopped. The clicking stopped. The laughter stopped. Then I heard it speak again, but this time in a different voice, a woman's voice, thin and reedy. "Marcus? Marcus, baby, where are you?" My mother's voice. My mother, who lived 2,000 miles away in Sacramento, who I'd last spoken to 3 days ago. "Marcus, I need you. Come out here. Please come out." I squeezed my eyes shut, hands pressed over my ears. The charm Mr. Bentley had given me clutched so tight in my palm that the leather cord cut into my skin. I started counting backward from 100, trying to drown out the sound of my mother's voice begging me to come outside. When I opened my eyes again, dawn light was filtering through the tent. My phone was still recording. The battery was at 3%. I played back the audio with shaking hands. For the first few minutes, there was nothing. Just silence and my breathing. Then a sound like wind. Then my voice, distorted and distant on the recording, saying, "Hello!" And then nothing again. No clicking, no laughter, no imitation of my mother, just silence. But I knew what I'd heard. I should have left. I know that now. But I had a job to finish, a contract to fulfill, and a part of me. The rational, scientific part was still trying to explain it away. Auditory hallucinations brought on by isolation. Some weird echo effect in the rock formations. Maybe I was getting sick, running a fever. I threw myself into the work. Covered more ground that day than any day previous. Took samples, recorded data, barely stopped to eat. Anything to keep my mind occupied until I could convince myself it was safe to return to camp. I made it back just before sunset. Cooked a freeze-dried meal. Boiled water for tea. Watched the sky turn from blue to orange to purple to black. And then I heard the coyotes. At first, it was normal, that high-pitched yipping that echoes across the desert. But then the sound changed. The yips became screams. Horrible, almost human screams, like animals being torn apart. And they were getting closer. I zipped myself into my tent and lay flat, the charm pressed against my chest. The screaming stopped. Footsteps again. But this time, not just circling, approaching. Closer and closer, until whatever it was must have been right next to my tent. I could hear its breathing through the thin nylon fabric, inches from my face. And then it spoke in my father's voice. My father, who died of cancer 8 years ago. "Marcus. Son. I'm cold. Let me in. Please let me in. I'm so cold." I bit down on my hand to keep from making a sound, tears streaming down my face. This thing, whatever it was, had somehow pulled my dead father's voice from my memory and was using it to try to get me to open the tent. "Marcus, please, it's dark out here. I'm scared. Don't leave me out here alone." A tent zipper started to move, just slightly, like someone was testing it from the outside. I found my voice. "You're not my father. You're not real. Go away." The zipper stopped moving. Silence for maybe 30 seconds. Then I heard it again, but in a voice I didn't recognize, something ancient and wrong, speaking in a language that sounded like rocks grinding together. And then it did something I'll never forget. It started to press against the tent, all around me, like hands, dozens of hands, pushing against the fabric, making it bulge inward. The outline of fingers, palms, pressing in from all sides. I was surrounded by the impression of hands, pushing, searching, trying to find a way in. I screamed, loud and long, not caring anymore about staying quiet. The hands pulled back instantly. The tent went still. And then I heard it run away. Not human running. This was on all fours, impossibly fast, the sound of it crashing through the brush getting fainter and fainter until there was only silence again. I didn't sleep. I lay in my tent, every muscle tensed, clutching that leather charm until the sun came up. At first light, I packed up everything. I was done. Job incomplete or not, contract or not, I was getting the hell out of there. But when I went to my truck, all 4 tires were slashed. Clean cuts, like someone had used a knife. And scratched into the dust on my hood was a message in letters a foot tall. "Stay." I pulled out my phone. No signal, as expected. I'd known there was no coverage out here. My satellite communicator was in the truck. I could call for help, but it would take hours for anyone to reach me, and I'd be stuck here until they did. I looked at the survey area to the north, then back toward the Beanley property to the south. 5 miles. I could hike it in under 2 hours if I moved fast. I grabbed my day pack, filled it with water and essential supplies, and started walking. I kept the charm around my neck and didn't look back. The hike should have been straightforward. I'd driven the route, I had my GPS, and the terrain wasn't difficult. But about a mile in, I realized something was following me. It started as a feeling. That sensation of being watched. I'd stop, turn around, see nothing, continue walking. The feeling would return. Then I started seeing it in my peripheral vision. A shape, man-sized, keeping pace with me about 50 yards to my left. Whenever I'd turn to look directly at it, there was nothing there. Just rocks and scrub brush. I walked faster. It kept pace. I started jogging. It matched my speed. And then I heard it. The clicking sound, coming from behind me now. I ran, full sprint, pack bouncing on my back, lungs burning in the dry air. The clicking grew louder, closer. Something was chasing me, and it was fast. I don't know what made me look back. Stupidity, panic, instinct, I don't know. But I turned my head while running, just for a second. There was something there, about 20 feet behind me, moving on, all fours but wrong. The joints bent at angles that weren't right, the limbs too long, and the skin. It looked like it was wearing skin that didn't fit, hanging loose in some places, stretched too tight in others. The face. Jesus Christ, the face! It was trying to look human, but couldn't quite manage it. The eyes were too far apart, the mouth too wide, splitting into a grin that showed too many teeth. And it was gaining on me. I faced forward and pushed harder, faster than I'd ever run in my life. My lungs screamed. My legs burned. I could hear it right behind me, that horrible clicking mixing with a sound like laughter. The Beanley house appeared in the distance. I could see Thomas Beanley standing in his yard, and he was shouting something, waving his arms. I couldn't hear him over the blood pounding in my ears and that clicking, laughing thing behind me. But as I got closer, I could make out his words, "The Porsche. Get to the Porsche." I didn't question it. I vaulted over his fence and ran straight for the porch. My foot hit the first step and the clicking stopped. I turned around. It was standing just beyond the fence. In the full light of day, I could see it clearly for the first time. It looked almost human. Almost. But the proportions were wrong. The movements too fluid, and the way it stared at me, head cocked at an unnatural angle, that too wide grin never changing. There was an intelligence there that was absolutely inhuman. Thomas Bentley stepped out onto the porch beside me. He didn't look at the thing. He looked at me. "You saw it," he said quietly. I couldn't speak, just nodded. "You're lucky. Most people who see them don't make it back." The thing turned and walked away, still on all fours, but slowly, casually, like it had all the time in the world, like it knew it would see me again. "What? Tell. What is it?" I finally managed. Thomas lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "You know what it is. Deep down, you know." "Skinwalker," I whispered. He nodded. "Yi Naya Lushi. We don't like to say the name, but yeah, that's what you people call them." "Why didn't it follow me onto the porch?" "Protection. My grandmother blessed this property 60 years ago. They can't cross certain boundaries. But out there," he gestured to the desert, "that's their land. Always has been." He called the tribal police, who called a tow truck for my vehicle. I gave them a statement about vandalism, but left out the part about being chased by something that shouldn't exist. They didn't seem surprised by any of it. I stayed on Thomas Beanley's porch for 6 hours until the tow truck arrived. He brought me food and water, but didn't say much. His daughter came out once, looked at me, then at her father, and nodded slowly like I'd passed some kind of test. When my truck was finally loaded and ready to go, Thomas walked me to the tow truck. "You gonna tell people?" he asked. "Would anyone believe me?" "No, but you'll know. And knowing, that changes you." He was right. It did change me. I never finished that survey. My company sent someone else out to complete it. The solar farm project got canceled anyway. Environmental concerns, they said. But I've always wondered if the Benaleys had something to do with that. I still have the charm Thomas's daughter made. I keep it in my nightstand. I've moved twice since then, always making sure my new place has a solid porch or doorstep. I don't camp anymore. I don't take jobs in remote locations. I barely leave the city. And I've never gone back to Arizona. Sometimes, late at night, I'll hear footsteps outside my apartment, or I'll see something in my peripheral vision that disappears when I turn to look. Or I'll hear a voice that sounds almost, but not quite, like someone I know. I tell myself it's just paranoia, trauma, my brain playing tricks on me. But I know the truth. I know what I saw. And I know that some things you can't outrun. Some things, once they've noticed you, they don't forget. I heard something outside my bedroom window last night. Clicking sounds, like tongue against teeth. I didn't look. I just held on to that charm and waited for sunrise. It's been 5 years, and I think it's still following me. If you're reading this, and you're ever offered a job on or near Navajo land, anywhere in the Four Corners area, really, just say no. I don't care how much it pays. I don't care how interesting it sounds. It's not worth it. Some places aren't meant for us. Some things are better left undisturbed. I learned that too late. I'm a park ranger. I've been one for 12 years now, working in some of the most remote wilderness areas in the continental United States. I've dealt with bears, wolves, mountain lions, and every kind of dangerous wildlife you can imagine. I've rescued lost hikers, treated hypothermia victims, and pulled people out of situations that should have killed them. But nothing in my training prepared me for what happened in the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness in February 2017. Nothing prepared me for the Wendigo. My name is James Whitmore, and I'm 41 years old. I work, or worked I should say, for the Superior National Forest Service in northern Minnesota. I requested a transfer after what happened, and they granted it without asking too many questions. I think they were relieved. I didn't make a bigger deal out of it. This story starts on February 9, 2017. It was a brutally cold winter that year. We're talking sustained temperatures of 20-30 below zero. The kind of cold that kills you if you're not prepared. The kind of cold where your breath freezes in the air and the trees crack like gunshots from the ice in their sap. Most people have the good sense not to go into the Boundary Waters in February. It's 1,000,000 acres of pristine wilderness, and in winter it becomes one of the most inhospitable places in the lower 48. But there are always a few adventure seekers, experienced winter campers, people who want to test themselves against nature. That's why we weren't immediately worried when we got the call about the Henderson party. Robert Henderson was a 47-year-old attorney from Minneapolis, experienced outdoorsman, did winter camping trips every year. He'd gone into the Boundary Waters with two friends, Michael Chen, 39, and David Kowalski, 42. They'd filed a permit for a 5-day winter camping trip, planning to snowshoe and ice fish in the backcountry. They were supposed to check in at the ranger station on February 14th. When they didn't show up and we couldn't raise them on their satellite phone, we started getting concerned. I was part of the search and rescue team that went in after them on February 15th. There were 4 of us, myself, another ranger named Katie Morrison, and 2 volunteer search and rescue specialists, Tom and Linda Erickson. We were all experienced winter wilderness experts. We had to be. Going into the Boundary Waters in February is no joke. The Hendersons' last known location was a campsite near Lake Insula, about 50 miles into the wilderness. The plan was to snowshoe in, locate them, and either escort them out or, if they were injured, call for helicopter evacuation. It should have been a straightforward rescue operation. We set out at dawn on the 15th. The temperature was minus 23 degrees Fahrenheit, with a wind chill pushing it down to minus 40. The sky was that pale, washed-out blue you only get in extreme cold, and the snow crunched under our snowshoes with every step. The wilderness was beautiful in a harsh, unforgiving way. Frozen lakes stretched out like white deserts, surrounded by dense pine forests heavy with snow. Everything was silent except for the wind and our breathing. No birds, no animals, just cold and silence. We reached the campsite around 2 p.m. We found their tent immediately. A large winter expedition tent still standing. But something was wrong. The tent was shredded, not torn by wind or collapsed from snow weight. Shredded. Long gashes in the fabric, like something with claws had ripped it apart from the outside. "Jesus!" Katie breathed, her words forming ice crystals in the air. We approached carefully. I had my hand on my radio, ready to call this in. Tom had his bear spray out, even though bears should have been hibernating. "Hello?" I called. "Forest Service. Anyone here?" No response. The tent was empty. Sleeping bags were torn apart, equipment scattered and broken. There was frost and ice on everything, meaning it had been open to the elements for at least a day, probably longer. But here's what made my skin crawl. There was food everywhere. Not eaten, not packed away, just scattered around like it had been thrown. Who leaves food out in bear country? Linda muttered. But she knew as well as I did. This wasn't bear country in February, and no bear had made those claw marks. Katie found the blood. It was frozen, dark patches in the snow around the tent. Not a lot, not enough to indicate a fatal injury, but enough to show someone had been hurt. The blood trail led away from the tent, heading north into the dense forest. We followed it. The trail was erratic, like someone had been running or stumbling. Every 100 feet or so, there was more blood. But there was something else too. Tracks. At first, I thought they were human footprints. They had the right general shape, 2 legs walking upright. But they were wrong, too long, too narrow, and the stride length was impossible. 8-9 feet between steps. No human could walk like that. What the hell made these? Tom asked, kneeling down to examine them. I didn't answer because I didn't know. The tracks were barefoot. We could see the impression of individual toes in the snow. But what kind of person walks barefoot through snow in -23-degree weather? We followed the tracks for another half-mile. The blood trail continued, sometimes on the tracks, sometimes separate from them, like there were 2 beings, one bleeding, one tracking. Then we found the first body. Michael Chen was face down in the snow about 30 yards off the main trail. He was wearing thermal underwear and 1 boot. That's it. No coat, no pants, no hat. His skin was gray-white with frostbite and death. But it was the way he died that made us all stop and stare. His rib cage was cracked open, not cut, not broken in a fall, cracked open like something had pried it apart with immense force, and his internal organs were gone, not torn out, not scattered around, just gone. The cavity was empty except for ice and frozen blood. Katie threw up. Even Tom, who'd been doing search and rescue for 20 years, went pale. "We need to call this in," I said, my voice shaking. "Right now!" I pulled out my radio. Static. I tried my satellite phone. No signal. "We're in a dead zone," Linda said quietly. She was staring at the body, her face unreadable. "We need to get to higher ground to call it in." "We need to get the fuck out of here," Katie said. "Something killed him. Something's still out here." She was right. I could feel it, that primal sense that prey animals have when a predator is near. We were being watched. "We stick together," I said. "We move back to the main trail. We get to high ground. We call this in, and we wait for backup. We don't split up. We don't investigate further." Everyone agreed? Everyone nodded. We started back the way we came. The sun was already getting lower. We had maybe 2 hours of daylight left. In the boundary waters in February, you do not want to be out after dark. We made it maybe 200 yards before Katie grabbed my arm. "Do you hear that?" We all stopped, listened. At first, nothing. Then, faintly, from somewhere in the forest, singing. It sounded like a man's voice, thin and high, singing something I didn't recognize. The words weren't in English, or any language I knew. The melody was wrong too. The notes didn't quite fit together, like someone who'd heard music but didn't understand how it worked. "Hello," Tom called out. "David? Robert? Is that you?" The singing stopped. Silence for maybe 10 seconds. Then something screamed. Not like a human scream. Not like any animal I'd ever heard. It was a shriek of pure rage and hunger, echoing through the frozen forest, making my bones vibrate with the sound of it. "Run!" I shouted. We ran. All 4 of us, crashing through the snow, snowshoes making it awkward and slow. I could hear something behind us, something big, moving fast, breaking through the undergrowth with sounds like trees snapping. Linda went down, just fell forward into the snow. Tom stopped to help her up, and I heard him scream. I turned back. There was something standing over Tom, something tall, 8, maybe 9 feet. It was skeletal, impossibly thin, with limbs too long and joints that bent wrong. The skin was gray-white, stretched tight over bones, with patches of frost or hair. I couldn't tell which. The head was the worst part. It had the general shape of a human skull, but elongated, with antlers, real antlers, like a deer's growing out of the top. And the eyes. The eyes were yellow, and they burned with an intelligence that was absolutely inhuman. It looked at Tom, opened its mouth, a mouth full of broken, yellowed teeth, and screamed again. Then it grabbed him. Just reached down with one impossibly long arm and grabbed him around the chest. Tom was a big guy, probably 200 pounds. This thing lifted him like he weighed nothing. "Shoot it!" Katie was screaming, fumbling for her bear spray. I had my service weapon out, a Glock 22. I fired 3 times, center mass, the shots echoing across the frozen lake. The thing didn't even flinch. It looked at me, tilted its head with that horrible, intelligent curiosity, and then it bit into Tom's shoulder. The sound Tom made. Oh, I still hear it sometimes, in nightmares. Katie grabbed my arm. "We have to go." Linda was already running. Katie and I followed, leaving Tom behind. I can still see him in my mind, struggling in that thing's grip as it fed. We ran until we couldn't run anymore, until our lungs burned and our legs gave out. We collapsed behind a fallen tree, gasping for air that was so cold it felt like knives in our chest. What the fuck was that thing? Katie managed between breaths. Linda was crying silently, ice forming on her face from the tears. I'd holstered my gun, useless against whatever that was, and was trying to get my satellite phone to work. Still no signal. "We need to keep moving," I said. "Get to high ground, get a signal, call for extraction." "It killed Tom," Katie said. She wasn't crying, she was in shock, her voice flat and emotionless. It ate him. It's going to eat all of us." "No," I said firmly, "we're going to survive this. We're going to get out, but we need to move now." We started moving again, slower this time, trying to stay quiet. The sun was setting. The temperature was dropping. We were miles from the nearest road, with no shelter, no backup, and something hunting us. I'd been in bad situations before. I'd been lost, been caught in blizzards, been charged by bears. But I'd never felt this kind of terror. This wasn't nature being indifferent. This was malevolent. This thing wasn't just killing. It was hunting, playing with us. We heard it again around 6 p.m., that singing somewhere off to our left, closer than before. "Don't stop," I whispered. "Keep moving. Don't look back." But Katie looked back. She stopped dead in her tracks, and I heard her make a small, broken sound. It was following us, moving through the trees about 50 yards back, matching our pace. In the fading light, I could see its silhouette, impossibly tall, impossibly thin, antlers scraping the lower branches as it walked. And it was smiling. I could see its teeth in what was left of the daylight. "Go," I said. "Linda, Katie, run. Get to the ranger station. I'll slow it down." "You can't," Katie started. "Go." I pulled out my gun again. "That's an order." They ran. I stood there, weapon raised, facing this thing that shouldn't exist. It stopped about 30 feet away, tilted its head, studying me. Up close, I could see details I'd missed before. The way its skin was stretched so tight, I could see every bone. The way its fingers were too long, ending in black, cracked nails. The frost forming in its matted hair. The way its stomach was distended, swollen, like it had eaten recently but was still hungry. It spoke. In a voice that sounded like wind through dead trees, it spoke in English. Hungry. Just that one word. And I understood with horrible clarity what I was dealing with. The Wendigo, a legend from the Ojibwe and other Algonquian peoples, a creature of winter and starvation, born when someone resorts to cannibalism. Eternally hungry, never satisfied, driven mad by an insatiable need to consume human flesh. I'd always thought they were just stories, cautionary tales. But here it was. Real. Hungry. I fired every round I had. 14 shots, and I didn't miss. I'm a good shot. Every bullet hit center mass. It didn't even slow down. It started walking toward me, and I did the only thing I could do. I ran. I don't know how long I ran. Time stopped meaning anything. It was just cold and darkness and terror and the sound of that thing behind me getting closer, its breath like winter wind, its footsteps shaking the ground. I broke through the tree line onto a frozen lake. Bad move, no cover. But I wasn't thinking tactically anymore. I was just running on pure animal panic. Halfway across the lake, I fell. Went down hard on the ice, felt something in my ankle give way. I tried to get up and couldn't. The ankle was broken or badly sprained. I rolled onto my back and saw it standing at the edge of the ice, watching me. That horrible smile on its face. It took one step onto the ice. The ice cracked. A sound like a gunshot, spiderwebbing out from where its foot touched down. It took another step, more cracking. And then I understood. It was heavy, impossibly heavy for something so thin. The ice wouldn't hold it. The Wendigo looked down at the ice, then back at me. For just a moment, I saw something in its eyes. Not quite frustration, not quite anger. Hunger, pure, endless hunger. Then it turned and walked back into the forest. I lay on that ice for what felt like hours, too terrified to move, too cold to feel my extremities anymore. Eventually, I heard voices. Lights. Katie had made it to a ranger station, and they'd sent out a full search and rescue team. They found me on the ice. They found Linda hypothermic but alive about 2 miles from where we'd split up. They found what was left of Tom and Michael Chen. They never found Robert Henderson or David Kowalski. The official report listed them as victims of exposure and possible predation by wolves. Tom and Michael's deaths were attributed to a bear attack. Never mind that bears don't hunt in February. I tried to tell them what I saw. I tried to explain about the Wendigo. They nodded, gave me hot coffee, and quietly suggested I take some time off for trauma counseling. Katie backed up my story. Linda was too traumatized to speak coherently. The official investigation concluded that we'd encountered an unusually aggressive bear that had emerged from hibernation early due to hunger. But I know what I saw. I know what killed those men. And I know it's still out there, in those frozen woods, eternally hungry, eternally hunting. I transferred to a ranger station in New Mexico. Desert work. No winters. No snow. No deep forests. I still have nightmares about that thing, about its yellow eyes and its too wide smile, about the way it spoke that one word, hungry. Sometimes I wonder about Robert Henderson and David Kowalski. Did it eat them first? Or did something worse happen? The Ojibwe legends say that sometimes people who resort to cannibalism become Wendigos themselves, that the act of eating human flesh transforms you, turns you into one of those things. What if Henderson or Kowalski, starving and desperate, ate their friend? What if that's what created the Wendigo we encountered? What if there are now 2 of them out there? I got a call last month from Katie. She's not a ranger anymore. She quit 2 months after the incident. She's a teacher now, lives in Florida, as far from Minnesota as she could get. Did you see the news? She asked. I hadn't. 3 hikers went missing in the Boundary Waters last week. Winter camping trip. They found one of them yesterday. I didn't want to ask, but I did. How? Same as Michael Chen. Rib cage cracked open, organs gone. They're calling it a bear attack. Neither of us said anything for a long moment. It's still there, she finally whispered. It's still hunting. Yeah, I said. I know. Someone needs to do something. Someone needs to... There's nothing we can do, Katie. We shot it. We reported it. They didn't believe us. What else can we do? We could go back. We could. No. My voice was sharp. We can't. That thing. It's not something we can fight. It's not something humans are meant to deal with. Going back would just mean adding ourselves to the body count. She knew I was right. We said goodbye and hung up. But she had a point. Someone should do something. Someone should warn people. So I'm telling this story. I'm putting it out there, even though I know most people will think I'm crazy or lying or traumatized. If you're thinking about winter camping in the Boundary Waters, don't. If you're an experienced outdoorsman who thinks you can handle anything nature throws at you, you can't handle this. If you hear stories about missing hikers or mysterious bear attacks in northern Minnesota, believe them and stay away. The Wendigo is real. It's hungry. And it's still out there, waiting in the frozen forests for the next person foolish enough to enter its territory. I've seen a lot of dangerous things in 12 years as a park ranger. But I've only seen one monster, and that was enough.